Welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to learn about scapula. It is a large, flattened and triangular bone. Large, flattened and triangular bone. You can see it is triangular. It is triangular bone. It is located on upper part of the posterolateral aspect of the thorax. Upper part of the posterolateral aspect of the thorax against second to seventh ribs. Parts of scapula. Scapula has body and three processes. Body of scapula. It has two surfaces, costal surface, dorsal surface. Three borders, superior border, medial border and lateral border. Three angles, superior angle, inferior angle and lateral angle. Process of scapula, spinous process, acromion process, coracoid process.
Parts of scapula. Scapula consists of two surfaces, costal surface, dorsal surface. It has three angles, lateral angle or glenoid angle, superior angle, inferior angle. Three borders, superior border, medial border, lateral border. Three process, coracoid process, spinous process, acromion process.
Let's see now about body of scapula. Surfaces, two surfaces, costal surface, dorsal surface. Costal surface, dorsal surface. Costal surface, it is also known as subscapular fossa. It is concave. It is directed medially and forwards. It is marked by oblique ridges that give rise to subscapularis. It is marked by oblique ridges that give rise to subscapularis. It has a rounded vertical ridge separated from the lateral border by a narrow groove. There is a narrow groove which separates rounded vertical ridge from the lateral border.
Costal surface, it is concave. It is directed forwards and medially. It has oblique ridges that give rise to subscapularis muscle. It bears strong rounded ridge. You can see strong rounded ridge near the lateral border.
Dorsal surface, it is convex. The dorsal surface is convex with a shelf-like process called spine. This spinous process divides the dorsal surface into upper smaller one-third supraspinous fossa, lower larger two-third infraspinous fossa. The spine divides the dorsal surface into upper one-third supraspinous fossa, lower two-third infraspinous fossa. The two fossae are communicated through spinoglenoid notch. Spinoglenoid notch is located between lateral border of the spine and the neck of scapula. It allows communication between two fossae and it transmits suprascapular nerve and vessels.
Dorsal surface, it is convex. It bears triangular shelf-like projection called spine. The spinous process divides the dorsal surface into
Supraspinous fossa, infraspinous fossa. Angles, three angles, inferior angle, superior angle, lateral angle. Inferior angle, it lies over 7th rib or 7th intercostal space. We know that scapula is present against 2nd to 7th ribs. So inferior angle lies over 7th rib or 7th intercostal space. Superior angle, it lies over 2nd rib. It is present at the junction of superior and medial borders. Lateral angle, it is truncated. It bears a pear-shaped articular cavity called the glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity articulates with head of humerus to form glenohumeral joint or shoulder joint. A fibrocartilaginous rim, the glenoid labrum, is attached to the margins of glenoid cavity to deepen its concavity.
angles, lateral angle or glenoid angle, superior angle,
Inferior angle.
inferior angle lies over 7th rib or 7th intercostal space. Superior angle, it lies over 2nd rib. Lateral angle, it is also known as glenoid angle. It bears pear-shaped glenoid cavity which articulates with head of humerus to form shoulder joint.
Borders, three borders, superior border, lateral border, medial border. Superior border, it is shortest border. It extends between superior and lateral angles. Suprascapular notch present near the root of coracoid process. Superior border, it is present between superior angle and lateral angle. Near the root of coracoid process, it presents suprascapular notch. Suprascapular notch is converted into suprascapular foramen by transverse scapular ligament. Suprascapular notch is converted into suprascapular foramen by suprascapular ligament. Suprascapular artery passes above the ligament. Suprascapular nerve passes below the ligament. Remember, air above, navy below. Suprascapular artery above the ligament, suprascapular nerve below the ligament. Lateral border, it is thickish border. It extends from lower end of the glenoid cavity to the inferior angle. At its upper end, it presents infraglenoid tubercle. Medial border, it is thin. It extends from superior angle to the inferior angle. It is angled at the root of spine of scapula.
Three borders, superior border, it extends between superior angle and lateral angle. Near the root of coracoid process, it presents suprascapular notch. You can see suprascapular notch here. It is present near the root of coracoid process. Lateral border, it extends between lower end of the glenoid cavity and inferior angle. In its upper end, it presents infraglenoid tubercle. Medial border, it is thin. It extends between superior angle and inferior angle.
Processes of scapula, spinous process, acromion process, coracoid process. Spinous process, it is a triangular shelf-like projection from the dorsal surface of the scapula. It has three borders and two surfaces. Spinous process is triangular shelf-like projection from the dorsal surface of the scapula. It has three borders and two surfaces. Three borders: anterior border, posterior border, lateral border. Anterior border, it fuses with dorsal surface of scapula. Posterior border, it forms crest of spine. Crest of spine, it has upper lip, lower lip and intervening area. Near the medial border, both lips diverge to enclose a small triangular area. The posterior border of the spinous process forms crest of spine. It presents upper lip, lower lip and intervening area. Near the medial border, both the lips diverge to enclose a small triangular area. Lateral border, it is rounded and it forms spinoglenoid notch. Two surfaces, upper surface, it is concave and it is continuous with supraspinous fossa. Lower surface, it is convex, it is continuous with infraspinous fossa. Now let's see about coracoid process. It is directed forwards and slightly laterally. It is bent and finger-like. It is an example of atavistic type of epiphysis. It is bent and finger-like. It is directed forwards and slightly laterally. Phylogenetically, it was an independent bone, but in humans, it gets fused with another bone to receive nutrition from it. Now let's see acromion process. It projects forwards almost at right angle from the lateral end of the spine. It projects forwards almost at right angle from the lateral end of the spine. It has tip, two borders, two surfaces. Borders, medial border, lateral border. Medial border is continuous with upper lip of the spine of scapula. Near tip, medial border presents a circular facet. Medial border of acromion process is continuous with upper lip of spinous process. Lateral border of acromion process is continuous with lower lip of spinous process. Surfaces, superior surface, inferior surface. Superior surface, it is rough and subcutaneous. Inferior surface, it is smooth.
Three process: spinous process, acromion process, coracoid process. Spinous process, it has three borders. and two surfaces. Three borders: anterior border, posterior border, and lateral border. Anterior border, it fuses with dorsal surface. Posterior border, it forms crest. Crest of the spine has upper lip, lower lip, and intervening area. Both the lips diverge near the medial border. Lateral border, it forms spinoglenoid notch. Through spinoglenoid notch, upper surface, it is concave. It is continuous with supraspinous fossa. Lower surface, it is convex. It is continuous with infraspinous fossa. Acromion process, it has two borders: medial border, lateral border, two surfaces: superior surface and inferior surface, and tip. Medial border, it is continuous with upper lip of spine of scapula. Medial border near the tip presents a circular facet. Lateral border, it is continuous with lower lip of spine of scapula. Surfaces: superior surface, it is rough and subcutaneous. Inferior surface, it is smooth. Coracoid process, it is directed forwards and slightly laterally. It is bent and finger-like.
Now let's see about attachments. Muscle origins from the scapula. Subscapularis. It arises from medial two-third of subscapular fossa. Supraspinatus. It arises from medial two-third of supraspinous fossa, upper surface of spinous process. Infraspinatus. It arises from medial two-third of infraspinous fossa, lower surface of spinous process. Deltoid arises from lower lip of crest of the spinous process and lateral border of acromion process. Subscapularis arises from medial two-third of subscapular fossa. Supraspinatus, it arises from medial two-third of supraspinous fossa and upper surface of spinous process. Infraspinatus, it arises from medial two-third of infraspinous fossa and lower surface of spinous process. Deltoid, it arises from lower lip of spinous process, lateral border of acromion process. Short head of biceps brachii and coracobrachialis arises from tip of coracoid process. Long head of biceps brachii arises from supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Inferior belly of omohyoid arises from upper border of scapula near suprascapular notch. Long head of triceps arises from infraglenoid tubercle of scapula. Above the glenoid cavity, there is supraglenoid tubercle. Long head of biceps arises from supraglenoid tubercle. Long head of triceps brachii arises from infraglenoid tubercle. Inferior belly of omohyoid arises from upper border near suprascapular notch. Teres minor and teres major arises from rough strip on the dorsal aspect of the lateral border. Teres minor arises from upper two-third of dorsal aspect of lateral border. Teres major arises from lower one-third of dorsal aspect of the lateral border. Let us revise muscle origins. Subscapularis arises from medial two-third of subscapular fossa. Supraspinatus arises from medial two-third of supraspinous fossa and upper surface of spinous process. Infraspinatus arises from infraspinous fossa and lower surface of spinous process. Deltoid arises from lower lip of spinous process and lateral border of acromion process. Long head of biceps arises from supraglenoid tubercle of scapula. Long head of triceps arises from infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Inferior belly of omohyoid arises from the upper border of the scapula near suprascapular notch. Short head of biceps and coracobrachialis arises from the tip of the coracoid process. Now let's see muscle insertions of the scapula. Serratus anterior. It inserts along the medial border of the costal surface. Along the medial border of costal surface. Serratus anterior inserts by 8 digitations. First digitation from superior angle to the root of spine. 2 digitations insert into medial border. 5 digitations into inferior angle. You can see the serratus anterior. It inserts by 8 digitation along medial border of costal surface. This is costal surface. This is medial border. Along the medial border of costal surface, serratus anterior inserts. First distation from the superior angle to the root of spine. 2 distations to the medial border. 5 distations to the inferior angle. Trapezius, it inserts into upper lip of the crest of the spine and medial border of acromion process. Upper lip of crest of spine and medial border of acromion process. Along the dorsal aspect of medial border from superior angle to the root of spine, levator scapula inserts, opposite to root of spine, rhomboid minor inserts, from root of spine to the inferior angle, rhomboid major inserts. This is dorsal aspect. Along the medial border of dorsal aspect from the superior angle to the root of spine, levator scapula inserts, opposite to root of spine, rhomboid minor inserts, from the root of spine to the inferior angle, rhomboid major inserts. Latissimus dorsi inserts on dorsal aspect of inferior angle. This is inferior angle. It inserts on dorsal aspect of inferior angle. Pectoralis minor. It is inserted into coracoid process. Medial border and superior surface of coracoid process. Let us revise muscle insertions. Serratus anterior along medial border of costal surface by 8 digitations. Pectoralis minor inserted on coracoid process. Trapezius inserts on upper lip of spinous process and medial border of acromion process along the dorsal aspect of the medial border. This is dorsal aspect. This is medial border. Along the dorsal aspect of medial border from superior angle to the root of spine, levator scapula inserts, opposite to the root of spine, rhomboid minor inserts, from the root of spine to the inferior angle, rhomboid major inserts. Latissimus dorsi inserts on the dorsal aspect of inferior angle. Attachments of ligaments, capsule of shoulder joint and glenoid labrum along margin of glenoid cavity. Capsule of shoulder joint and glenoid labrum along the margin of glenoid cavity. Capsule of shoulder joint and glenoid labrum along the margins of glenoid cavity. Coracoacromial ligament. Coracoid process. Acromial process. Lateral border of coracoid process to the tip of acromion process. You can see coracoacromial ligament, lateral border of coracoid process, tip of acromial process. Coracoclavicular ligament, coracoid process of scapula. Clavicle. Coracoclavicular ligament has two parts, conoid part, trapezoid part. Conoid part is attached at the junction of ascending and horizontal parts of coracoid process. Trapezoid part attached to the ridge on the superior surface of horizontal part of coracoid process. You can see coracoclavicular ligament. Coracohumeral ligament near the root of coracoid process. Coracohumeral ligament near the root of coracoid process. Transverse scapular ligament across suprascapular notch forming a foramen. Transverse scapular ligament or suprascapular ligament along the suprascapular notch converts this notch into the foramen, suprascapular foramen. Sphenoglenoid ligament, it bridges sphenoglenoid notch. Let's see anatomical position of scapula. Glenoid cavity is directed forwards, laterally and slightly upwards. Dorsal surface bearing the spine should be faced backwards. Dorsal surface bearing the spine should be directed backwards. Coracoid process pointed forwards and slightly laterally. Coracoid process directed forwards and slightly laterally. Acute inferior angle should be faced inferiorly. Acute inferior angle should be faced inferiorly.
Anatomical position of the scapula. The scapula should be held in such a way that the glenoid cavity should be placed forwards, laterally and slightly upwards. The dorsal surface bearing the spine should be faced backwards. Coracoid process should be pointed forwards and slightly laterally. The acute inferior angle should be faced inferiorly.